we're going to talk about how to solve percent problems. When you solve percent problems, there's a few different ways that you can do each type of percent problem, but we're going to talk about the part percent whole method. The reason that we're going to use that is because it's like setting up a proportion, and you can solve each of the problems using this same way. So the reason that it's called the part percent whole method is because every percentage problem that you solve for has a part, a whole, and a percent. And we'll talk about what that looks like here in a second. Okay, so when you're solving for a percentage, you have a part, a percentage, and a whole. So what that looks like is you have the part over the whole, and that is equal to the percentage over 100. Now the reason that there's 100 under the percent is because percent literally means per 100. Okay, so you can write this over 100 every time. Okay, so this is what it looks like, and these are the three things that you could possibly solve for. The part is like having some of everything that's being asked, or that's kind of how I think about it. The whole is when you have everything, or you have it all, and the percentage is pretty easy to find when you're solving percent for percentages, or when there's a percentage in the problem. Okay, so I think the easiest way to do this is just to go through a few. So let's try one. And this is a word problem. Okay, your cousin, who really likes to travel, has been to 35 of the 50 states in the United States. What percent of the states has he visited? So a couple things when you read the percent problems is you can look for keywords. So this right here says what percent. So that right there, you know that you're going to be solving for the percentage. Okay, the other thing that I see is it says 35 of 50. Whenever you see the word of and then whatever comes after it, that gives away what the whole number is usually. Okay, so whenever you see of whatever they say next is usually the whole. So how can we set this up? So we're going to use this part percent whole method to solve this problem. So the part, okay, I'm going to write, that's how I abbreviate it. Okay, so the part is the 35, because 35 is only part of all of the 50 states. So I'm going to put 35 over the whole would be of the 50 states. Okay, the percentage is what we're looking for, so we're going to put an X there, and then we're going to have 100. Okay, so now this is just a proportion that we can cross multiply and divide. So we can cross multiply these, so we'll get 50x when we cross multiply these, and that equals 35 times 100 would be 3,500, and then we would be able to divide 3,500 by 50. And if you don't know that, you can use a calculator, which I'm going to get. And I'm going to take 3,500 on my calculator, divided by 50, and I get 70. So this 3,500 divided by 50 is 70. And since we're looking for the percent, it's 70%. So my answer is 70%. Okay, let's try another one. Your mom has baked 80 cookies. She gave you 28 to take to school to give to your friends. What percent of the cookies did she give you? So we'll do the part, whole, percent over 100. Your mom has baked 80 cookies. That's all of the cookies, so we know that that's the whole number. She gave you 28 of them, so that would be part of them to take to school. What percent of them? So what percent? That means we're solving for the percent. Over 100. So I'm going to put an X there instead. What percent of those? Okay, so then we take 28 times 100, which is 2800. That equals 80x. So we can solve for x. So 2800 divided by 80 is 35. So our answer is 35, and we solve for the percentage. So we're going to have a percent here. So our answer is 35%. Okay? So that's when you're solving for the percent. Let's try the next one. This is a different kind of percent problem when we're solving for one of the other parts of the part percent whole, which would be, instead of the percentage, we're going to solve for either the part or the whole. Your friend Jason has a job painting houses. Let's say he will give you 35% of whatever he earns if you help him out painting houses. So you're going to get 35% of whatever he gets. In one day, your friend earned $80. How much money will you make in that day? Okay, so part, percent, whole equals 100. So let's see, he will give you 35%, so we can plug in the 35% of whatever he earns. In one day, your friend earned $80. So he earned $80 in one day. That would be all of the money he earned in that day. So we would put it in the whole, because we want to know your part of how much you're going to earn. So we're going to put an X there, and then we can cross multiply and divide. So 80 times 35 is 2,800. 100 times X is 100X. And then we take 2,800 divided by 100. 2,800 divided by 100. If you don't know, you can do it on the calculator. 2,800 divided by 100 is 28. So in that one day, he made $80 and he's going to give you 35%. That would mean you made $28. Okay? So you solve for the part there. Let's try another one of those. All right, this says last year our school had 400 students. This year our school has 120% of those students. How many students do we have this year? So this is an interesting problem because the percentage is greater than 100, which sometimes you might see. Okay, but we still use the same method. So part, percent, whole equals 100. So last year our school had 400 students. Okay, so that's going to be the whole this time because part of our students, the part this time is going to be bigger than the whole because the percentage is bigger than 100%. Okay, so we're going to plug in 120% for the percentage, which is over 100. Okay, and one thing I've not mentioned yet, I guess, and I should have probably, is that when you deal with percentages, okay, in some methods when you're solving for percentages, you need to move the decimal. Well, when you do the part percent whole, you do not need to move the decimal. So that's something to keep in mind. Okay? The part and the whole, the 400 students like we talked about is going to be the whole because the percentage is greater than 100, which means the whole is actually going to be smaller than the part. Okay, that's kind of interesting, but that's why, because the percentage is bigger than the 100. So we're going to solve for this, and when we do this, cross multiply and divide. 400 times 120 400 times 120 is 48,000. 100 times x is obviously 100x, and then we take 48,000 divided by 100. If you don't know that, you can do that on your calculator. So our answer would be 480 students. So this one was a little different because the part was actually bigger, and the reason that was that way is because the percentage, the 120% that was given, was bigger than 100%. Okay, let's go over the last type of problem. It says your friend Carrick has a box of cookies. 20% of the cookies are chocolate chip cookies. If 7 of the cookies are chocolate chip, how many cookies does Carrick have in all? So we're going to use part percent whole, so I'm going to write that down. Part percent whole equals 100. Okay, you write that the same way every time, no matter the problem. Okay, immediately I see the percentage, so I'm going to plug that in. 20 over 100 equals, if 7 of, remember we talked about of the cookies, of and anything after that is probably the whole. Since there's no number after that, you can assume that 7 is the part. 7 of all the cookies, that makes sense because 7 is only part of the cookies. So there's 7 chocolate chip cookies, and that's only part of all the cookies that Carrick has. So you can put an x in the whole part because that's what you're going to be solving for. So 20 times x is 20x. 7 times 100 is 700. You can take 700 divided by 20. Divided by 20, and you get x equals 35. So how many cookies does Carrick have in all? He has 35 cookies. Okay, so we've solved for the whole that time. Let's try one more. The high school football team has 6 running backs. If 8% of the team are running backs, how many players are on the whole team? So we're going to write part percent whole. Okay. We write this every time. Okay, now do we know the part? The team has 6 running backs. If 8% of the team are the running backs, do we know the percent? I always do the percent because it's the easiest thing to find first. If you can't find the percentage in the problem, that's probably what you're solving for. So we have percent, we have 8%, so we're going to write that over 100, and that equals, of the team are running backs. So the team has 6 running backs, so that's only part of the team is the running backs. So 6, and then the whole team would be the x that we're solving for because we want to know how many players are on the whole team. That whole kind of gives it away on the whole team. So we write 8 times x is 8x equals 6 times 100 is 600. Divide by 8 to get x alone. X equals 600 divided by 8 is 75. So how many players are on the whole team? There's 75 players. 75 players. So we talked about percentage problems, and we talked about 3 types of percentage problems: when you're solving for the part, when you're solving for the whole, and when you're solving for the percent. Each of those type of problems can be solved using the part percent whole method. Okay, so I encourage you to use this. The best way to understand this is to actually go through some problems, so make sure you do that, and if you have any questions, please let me know.